Hadīth 72. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, a matron should not be given in marriage except after consulting her, and a virgin should not be given in marriage except after her permission. The people asked, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, how can we know her permission? He said, her silence indicates her permission. Hadīth 73. Narrated Aisha, I said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, a virgin feels shy. He said, her consent is expressed by her silence. Hadīth 74. Narrated Kansa bint Qadam al-Ansariya, that her father gave her in marriage when she was a matron and she disliked that marriage. So she went to Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and he declared that marriage invalid. Hadīth 75. Narrated Abdur Rahman bin Yazid and Mujami bin Yazid, the same hadith above, a man called Qadam married a daughter of his, to somebody, against her consent. Hadīth 76. Narrated Urwah bin az-Zubayr, that he asked Aisha, saying to her, O mother, in what connection was this verse revealed, if you fear that you shall not be able to deal justly with orphan girls, to the end of the verse, that your right hands possess. Surah 4, Ayah 3. Aisha said, O my nephew, it was about the female orphan under the protection of her guardian who was interested in her beauty and wealth and wanted to marry her with a little or reduced mahr. So such guardians were forbidden to marry female orphans unless they deal with them justly and give their full mahr, and they were ordered to marry women other than them. Aisha added, later, the people asked Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, for instructions, and then Allah revealed, they ask your instruction concerning the women. And yet whom you desire to marry. Surah 4, Ayah 127. So Allah revealed to them in this verse that if a female orphan had wealth and beauty, they desired to marry her and were interested in her noble descent and the reduction of her mahr, but if she was not desired by them because of her lack in fortune and beauty they left her and married some other woman. So, as they used to leave her when they had no interest in her, they had no right to marry her if they had the desire to do so, unless they dealt justly with her, and gave her a full amount of mahr. Hadīth 77. Narrated Sahih, a woman came to the Prophet, and presented herself to him, for marriage. He said, I am not in need of women these days. Then a man said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, marry her to me. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked him, what have you got? He said, I have got nothing. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, give her something, even an iron ring. He said, I have got nothing. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked him, how much of the Qur'an do you know, by heart? He said, so much and so much. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, I have married her to you for what you know of the Qur'an. Hadīth 78. Narrated Ibn Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, decreed that one should not try to cancel a bargain already agreed upon between some other persons, by offering a bigger price. And a man should not ask for the hand of a girl who is already engaged to his Muslim brother, unless the first suitor gives her up, or allows him to ask for her hand. Hadīth 79. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, beware of suspicion, about others, as suspicion is the falsest talk, and do not spy upon each other, and do not listen to the evil talk of the people about others' affairs, and do not have enmity with one another, but be brothers. And none should ask for the hand of a girl who is already engaged to his Muslim brother, but one should wait till the first suitor marries her or leaves her. Hadīth 80. Narrated Abdullāh bin Umar, when Hafsah became a widow, Umar said, I met Abu Bakr and said to him, if you wish I will marry Hafsah bint Umar to you. I waited for a few days, then Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, asked for her hand. Later, Abu Bakr met me and said, "Nothing stopped me from returning to you concerning your offer, except that I knew that Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, had mentioned his wish to marry her, and I could never let out the secret of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. If he had left her, I would have accepted her." Hadith 81. Narrated Ibn Umar, 2 men came from the east and delivered speeches, and the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Some eloquent speech has the influence of magic. For example, some people refuse to do something and then a good eloquent speaker addresses them and then they agree to do that very thing after his speech." Hadith 82. Narrated Ar-Rubai, the daughter of Muawid bin Afra, after the consummation of my marriage, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, came and sat on my bed as far from me as you are sitting now, and our little girls started beating the tambourines and reciting elegiac verses mourning my father who had been killed in the Battle of Badr. One of them said, "Among us is a prophet who knows what will happen tomorrow." On that, the Prophet said, "Leave this, saying, and keep on saying the verses which you had been saying before." Hadith 83. Narrated Anas, Abdurrahman bin Auf married a woman and gave her gold equal to the weight of a date stone, as Mahr. When the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, noticed the signs of cheerfulness of the marriage, on his face, and asked him about it, he said, "I have married a woman and gave her gold equal to a date stone in weight, as Mahr." Hadith 84. Narrated Sahal bin Sa'd as-Sa'idi, while I was, sitting, among the people in the company of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, a woman stood up and said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. She has given herself in marriage to you, please give your opinion of her." The Prophet did not give her any reply. She again stood up and said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. She has given herself, in marriage, to you, so please give your opinion of her." The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not give her any reply. She again stood up for the 3rd time and said, "She has given herself in marriage to you, so give your opinion of her." So a man stood up and said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Marry her to me." The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked him, "Have you got anything?" He said, "No." The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Go and search for something, even if it were an iron ring." The man went and searched and then returned saying, "I could not find anything, not even an iron ring." Then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Do you know something of the Qur'an, by heart?" He replied, "I know, by heart, such surah and such surah." The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Go. I have married her to you for what you know of the Qur'an, by heart." Hadith 85. Narrated Sahal bin Sa'd, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to a man, "Marry, even with a mahr equal to an iron ring." Hadith 86. Narrated Uqbah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "The stipulations most entitled to be abided by are those with which you are given the right to enjoy the women's private parts, that is, the stipulations of the marriage contract." Hadith 87. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "It is not lawful for a woman, at the time of wedding, to ask for the divorce of her sister, that is, the other wife of her would-be husband, in order to have everything for herself, for she will take only what has been written for her." Hadith 88. Narrated Anas bin Malik, Abdurrahman bin Auf came to Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and he had marks of sufra, yellow perfume. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, asked him about those marks. Abdurrahman bin Auf told him that he had married a woman from the Ansar. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked, "How much mahr did you pay her?" He said, "I paid gold equal to the weight of a date stone." Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, "Give a wedding banquet, even if with 1 sheep." Hadīth 89. Narrated Anas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, offered a wedding banquet on the occasion of his marriage to Zainab, and provided a good meal for the Muslims. Then he went out as was his custom on marrying. He came to the dwelling places of the mothers of the believers, that is, his wives, invoking good on them, and they were invoking good on him. Then he departed, and came back, and saw 2 men, still sitting there. So he left again. I do not remember whether I informed him or he was informed, by somebody else, of their departure. Hadīth 90. Narrated Anas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saw the traces of sufra, yellow perfume, on Abdurrahman bin Auf and said, "What is this?" Abdurrahman said, "I have married a woman and have paid gold equal to the weight of a date stone, as her mahr." The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, "May Allah bless you, offer a wedding banquet even with 1 sheep." Hadīth 91. Narrated Aisha, when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, married me, my mother came to me and made me enter the house where I saw some women from the Ansar who said, "May you prosper and have blessings and have good omen." Hadīth 92. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "A prophet among the prophets went for a military expedition and said to his people, 'A man who has married a lady and wants to consummate his marriage with her and he has not done so yet, should not accompany me.'" Hadīth 93. Narrated Urwa, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, wrote the marriage contract with Aisha while she was 6 years old and consummated his marriage with her while she was 9 years old, and she remained with him for 9 years, that is, till his death. Hadīth 94. Narrated Anas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, stayed for 3 days at a place between Khaybar and Medina, and there he consummated his marriage with Safiyyah bint Huyay. I invited the Muslims to a banquet which included neither meat nor bread. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered for the leather dining sheets to be spread, and then dates, dried yogurt and butter were provided over it, and that was the Walima, banquet, of the Prophet. The Muslims asked whether Safiyyah would be considered as his wife or as a slave girl of what his right hands possessed. Then they said, "If the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, screens her from the people, then she is the Prophet's wife, but if he does not screen her, then she is a slave girl." So when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, proceeded, he made a place for her, on the camel, behind him and screened her from people. Hadīth 95. Narrated Aisha, when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, married me, my mother came to me and made me enter the house of the Prophet, and nothing surprised me but the coming of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, to me in the forenoon. Hadīth 96. Narrated Jabir bin Abdullāh, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Did you get unmat?" I said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. From where can we have unmat?" The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "Soon you will have them, unmat." Hadīth 97. Narrated Aisha, that she prepared a lady for a man from the Ansar as his bride, and the Prophet said, "O Aisha, haven't you got any amusement, during the marriage ceremony, as the Ansar like amusement?" Hadīth 98. Narrated Anas bin Malik, whenever the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, passed by, my mother Sulaym, he used to enter her and greet her. Anas further said, once the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was a bridegroom during his marriage with Zainab. Sulaym said to me, "Let us give a gift to Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him." I said to her, "Do it." So she prepared haisa, a sweet dish, made from dates, butter and dried yogurt, and she sent it with me to him. I took it to him and he said, "Put it down," and ordered me to call some men whom he named, and to invite whomever I would meet. I did what he ordered me to do, and when I returned, I found the house crowded with people and saw the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, keeping his hand over the haisa and saying over it whatever Allah wished him to say. Then he called the men in batches of 10 to eat of it, and he said to them, mention the name of Allah, and each man should eat of the dish nearest to him. When all of them had finished their meals, some of them left and a few remained there talking, over which I felt unhappy. Then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, went out towards the dwelling places of his wives, and I too went out after him and told him that those people had left. Then he returned and entered his dwelling place and let the curtains fall while I was in his dwelling place, and he was reciting the verses, O you who have believed, do not enter the houses of the Prophet except when you are permitted for a meal, without awaiting its readiness. But when you are invited, then enter, and when you have eaten, disperse without seeking to remain for conversation. Indeed, that behavior was troubling the Prophet, and he is shy of dismissing you. But Allah is not shy of the truth. Surah 33, Ayah 53. Abu Uthman said, Anas said, I served the Prophet for 10 years. Hadīth 99. Narrated Aisha, that she borrowed a necklace from Ismā and then it got lost. So Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, sent some people from his companions in search of it. In the meantime, the stated time for the prayer became due and they offered their prayer without ablution. When they came to the Prophet, they complained about it to him, so the verse regarding tayammum was revealed. Usaid bin Hudayr said, O Aisha, may Allah bless you with a good reward, for by Allah, never did a difficulty happen in connection with you, but Allah made an escape from it for you, and brought Allah's blessings for the Muslims. Hadīth 100. Narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if any one of you, when having sexual intercourse with his wife, says, in the name of Allah. O Allah! Protect us from Satan and prevent Satan from approaching our offspring you are going to give us, and if it is destined that they should have a child, then Satan will never be able to harm him. Hadīth 101. Narrated Anas bin Malik, I was 10 years old when Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, arrived at Medina. My mother and aunts used to urge me to serve the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, regularly, and I served him for 10 years. When the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, died, I was 20 years old, and I knew about the order of al-hijab, veiling of ladies, more than any other person when it was revealed. It was revealed for the first time when Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, had consummated his marriage with Zainab bint Jahash. When the day dawned, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, was a bridegroom and he invited the people to a banquet, so they came, ate, and then all left except a few who remained with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, for a long time. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, got up and went out, and I too went out with him so that those people might leave too. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, proceeded and so did I, till he came to the threshold of Aisha's dwelling place. Then thinking that these people have left by then, he returned and so did I along with him till he entered upon Zainab and behold, they were still sitting and had not gone. So the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, again went away and I went away along with him. When we reached the threshold of Aisha's dwelling place, he thought that they had left, and so he returned and I too returned along with him, and found those people had left. Then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, drew a curtain between me and him, and the verses of al-hijab were revealed. Hadīth 102. Narrated Anas, when Abdurrahman bin Auf married an Ansari woman, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, asked him, how much Mahr did you give her? Abdurrahman said, gold equal to the weight of a date stone. Anas added, when they, that is, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his companions, arrived at Medina, the emigrants stayed at the Ansar's houses. Abdurrahman bin Auf stayed at Sa'd bin Rabi's house. Sa'd said to Abdurrahman, I will divide and share my property with you and will give one of my 2 wives to you. Abdurrahman said, may Allah bless you, your wives and property, I am not in need of that, but kindly show me the way to the market. So Abdur-Rahman went to the market and traded there, gaining a profit of some dried yogurt and butter, and married an Ansari woman. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said to him, give a banquet, even if with one sheep. Hadith 103. Narrated Anas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, did not give a better wedding banquet on the occasion of marrying any of his wives than the one he gave on marrying Zainab, and that banquet consisted of 1 sheep. Hadith 104. Narrated Anas, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, manumitted Safiyyah and then married her, and her Mahr was her manumission, and he gave a wedding banquet with hais, a sort of sweet dish made from butter, cheese and dates. Hadith 105. Narrated Anas, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, consummated his marriage with a woman, Zainab, so he sent me to invite men to the meals. Hadith 106. Narrated Thabit, the marriage of Zainab bint Jahash was mentioned in the presence of Anas and he said, I did not see the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, giving a better banquet on marrying any of his wives than the one he gave on marrying Zainab. He then gave a banquet with 1 sheep. Hadith 107. Narrated Safiyyah bint Shaybah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, gave a banquet with 2 muds of barley on marrying some of his wives. 1 mud equals 1/3 of a kilogram. Hadith 108. Narrated Abdullāh bin Umar, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if any one of you is invited to a wedding banquet, he must go for it, accept the invitation. Hadith 109. Narrated Abu Musa, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, set the captives free, accept the invitation, to a wedding banquet and visit the patients. Hadith 110. Narrated Al-Barā bin Azib, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, ordered us to do 7 things, and forbade us from 7. He ordered us to visit the patients, to follow the funeral procession, to reply to the sneezer, that is, say to him, Yarhamuk-Allah, may Allah bestow His mercy upon you, if he says, Alhamdulillah, praise be to Allah, to help others to fulfill their oaths, to help the oppressed, to greet whomever one should meet, and to accept the invitation, to a wedding banquet. He forbade us to wear golden rings, to use silver utensils, to use mayathir, cushions of silk stuffed with cotton and placed under the rider on the saddle, the kasiyah, linen clothes containing silk brought from an Egyptian town, the istabrak, thick silk, and the dibaj, another kind of silk. Hadith 111. Narrated Sahal bin Sa'd, Abu Usaid as-Sa'idi invited Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, to his wedding party, and his wife who was the bride served them on that day. Do you know what drink she gave Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him? She had soaked some dates for him, in water, overnight, and when he had finished his meal she gave him that drink, of soaked dates. Hadith 112. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the worst food is that of a wedding banquet to which only the rich are invited while the poor are not invited. And he who refuses an invitation, to a banquet, disobeys Allah and His Apostle. Hadith 113. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if I am invited to a meal of trotters I will accept it, and if I am given a trotter as a present I will accept it. Hadith 114. Narrated Nafi, Abdullāh bin Umar said, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, accept the marriage invitation if you are invited to it. Ibn Umar used to accept the invitation whether to a wedding banquet or to any other party, even when he was fasting. Hadith 115. Narrated Anas bin Malik, once the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, saw some women and children coming from a wedding party. He got up energetically and happily and said, by Allah! You, that is, the Ansar, are the most beloved of all people to me. Hadīth 116. Narrated Aisha, the wife of the Prophet, I bought a cushion having on it pictures of animals. When Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, saw it, he stood at the door and did not enter. I noticed the sign of disapproval on his face and said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. I repent to Allah and His Apostle. What sin have I committed? Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, What is this cushion? I said, I have bought it for you so that you may sit on it and recline on it. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, The makers of these pictures will be punished on the day of resurrection, and it will be said to them, Give life to what you have created, that is, these pictures. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, added, The angels of mercy do not enter a house in which there are pictures of animals. Hadīth 117. Narrated Sahih, when Abu Usaid as-Sa'idi got married, he invited the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and his companions. None prepared the food for them and brought it to them but his wife. She soaked some dates in water in a stone pot overnight, and when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had finished his food, she provided him with that drink of soaked dates. Hadīth 118. Narrated Sahal bin Sa'd, Abu Usaid as-Sa'idi invited the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, to his wedding party and his wife served him on that day, and she was the bride. She said, or Sahal said, Do you know what she soaked for Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him? She soaked some dates for him, in water, in a drinking bowl overnight. Hadīth 119. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, The woman is like a rib, if you try to straighten her, she will break. So if you want to get benefit from her, do so while she still has some crookedness. Hadīth 120. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Whoever believes in Allah and the last day should not hurt, trouble, his neighbor. And I advise you to take care of the women, for they are created from a rib, and the most crooked portion of the rib is its upper part. If you try to straighten it, it will break, and if you leave it, it will remain crooked, so I urge you to take care of the women. Hadīth 121. Narrated Ibn Umar, during the lifetime of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, we used to avoid chatting leisurely and freely with our wives lest some divine inspiration might be revealed concerning us. But when the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had died, we started chatting leisurely and freely with them. Hadīth 122. Narrated Abdullāh bin Umar, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, Every one of you is a guardian and every one of you is responsible for his wards. A ruler is a guardian and is responsible for his subjects, a man is a guardian of his family and responsible for them, a wife is a guardian of her husband's house and she is responsible for it, a slave is a guardian of his master's property and is responsible for that. Beware! All of you are guardians and are responsible for your wards. Hadīth 123. Narrated Aisha, 11 women sat at a place, and promised and contracted that they would not conceal anything of the news of their husbands. The first one said, My husband is like the meat of a slim weak camel which is kept on the top of a mountain which is neither easy to climb, nor is the meat fat, so that one might put up with the trouble of fetching it. The second one said, I shall not relate my husband's news, for I fear that I may not be able to finish his story, for if I describe him, I will mention all his defects and bad traits. The third one said, My husband, too tall. If I describe him, and he hears of that, he will divorce me, and if I keep quiet, he will keep me hanging, neither divorcing me nor treating me as a wife. The fourth one said, My husband is moderate in temper, like the night of Tihama, neither hot nor cold, I am neither afraid of him, nor am I discontented with him. The fifth one said, My husband, when entering the house, is a leopard, sleeps a lot, and when going out, is a lion, boasts a lot. He does not ask about whatever is in the house. The sixth one said, if my husband eats, he eats too much, leaving the dishes empty, and if he drinks he leaves nothing, if he sleeps he rolls himself, alone in our blankets, and he does not insert his palm to inquire about my feelings. The seventh one said, my husband is a wrongdoer or weak and foolish. All the defects are present in him. He may injure your head or your body or may do both. The eighth one said, my husband is soft to touch like a rabbit and smells like a zarnub, a kind of good-smelling grass. The ninth one said, my husband is a tall generous man wearing a long strap for carrying his sword. His ashes are abundant, that is, generous to his guests, and his house is near to the people, who would easily consult him. The 10th one said, my husband is Malik, possessor, and what is Malik? Malik is greater than whatever I say about him. He is beyond and above all praises which can come to my mind. Most of his camels are kept at home, ready to be slaughtered for the guests, and only a few are taken to the pastures. When the camels hear the sound of the lute, or the tambourine, they realize that they are going to be slaughtered for the guests. The 11th one said, my husband is Abu Zar, and what is Abu Zar, that is, what should I say about him? He has given me many ornaments and my ears are heavily loaded with them and my arms have become fat, that is, I have become fat. And he has pleased me, and I have become so happy that I feel proud of myself. He found me with my family who were mere owners of sheep and living in poverty, and brought me to a respected family having horses and camels and threshing and purifying grain. Whatever I say, he does not rebuke or insult me. When I sleep till late in the morning, and when I drink water, or milk, I drink my fill. The mother of Abu Zar, and what may one say in praise of the mother of Abu Zar? Her saddle-bags were always full of provision and her house was spacious. As for the son of Abu Zar, what may one say of the son of Abu Zar? His bed is as narrow as an unsheathed sword and an arm of a kid, of 4 months, satisfies his hunger. As for the daughter of Abu Zar, she is obedient to her father and to her mother. She has a fat well-built body and that arouses the jealousy of her husband's other wife. As for the maid, slave girl of Abu Zar, what may one say of the maid, slave girl of Abu Zar? She does not uncover our secrets but keeps them, and does not waste our provisions and does not leave the rubbish scattered everywhere in our house. The 11th lady added, one day it so happened that Abu Zar went out at the time when the milk was being milked from the animals, and he saw a woman who had 2 sons like 2 leopards playing with her 2 breasts. On seeing her, he divorced me and married her. Thereafter I married a noble man who used to ride a fast tireless horse and keep a spear in his hand. He gave me many things, and also a pair of every kind of livestock and said, eat of this, O Zar, and give provision to your relatives. She added, yet, all those things which my second husband gave me could not fill the smallest utensil of Abu Zar's. Aisha then said, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said to me, I am to you as Abu Zar was to his wife Zar. Hadīth 124. Narrated Urwa, Aisha said, while the Ethiopians were playing with their small spears, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, screened me behind him and I watched that display, and kept on watching till I left on my own. So you may estimate of what age a little girl may listen to amusement. Hadīth 125. Narrated Ibn Abbas, I had been eager to ask Umar bin al-Khattab about the 2 ladies from among the wives of the Prophet regarding whom Allah said, if you 2, wives of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, namely Aisha and Hafsa, turn in repentance to Allah, your hearts are indeed so inclined, to oppose what the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, likes, Surah 66, Ayah 4, till Umar performed the Hajj, and I too performed the Hajj along with him. On the way, Umar went aside to answer the call of nature, and I also went aside along with him carrying a tumbler full of water, and when Umar had finished answering the call of nature, I poured water over his hands and he performed the ablution. Then I said to him, O chief of the believers, who were the two ladies from among the wives of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, regarding whom Allah said, If you too, wives of the Prophet, turn in repentance to Allah, your hearts are indeed so inclined, to oppose what the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, likes? Surah 66, Ayah 4. He said, I am astonished at your question, O Ibn Abbas. They were Aisha and Hafsa. Then Umar went on narrating the hadith and said, I and an Ansari neighbor of mine from Bani Umayyah bin Zayd, who used to live in Awali al-Madinah, used to visit the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, in turn. He used to go one day and I another day. When I went, I would bring him the news of what had happened that day regarding the divine inspiration and other things, and when he went, he used to do the same for me. We, the people of Quraysh, used to have the upper hand over our wives, but when we came to the Ansar, we found that their women had the upper hand over their men, so our women also started learning the ways of the Ansari women. I shouted at my wife and she retorted against me, and I disliked that she should answer me back. She said to me, Why are you so surprised at my answering you back? By Allah, the wives of the Prophet answer him back and some of them may leave, do not speak to him throughout the day till the night. The talk scared me and I said to her, Whoever has done so will be ruined. Then I proceeded after dressing myself, and entered upon Hafsa and said to her, Does any one of you keep the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, angry till night? She said, Yes. I said, You are a ruined losing person. Don't you fear that Allah may get angry for the anger of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and thus you will be ruined? So do not ask more from the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and do not answer him back and do not give up talking to him. Ask me whatever you need, and do not be tempted to imitate your neighbor, that is, Aisha, in her manners, for she is more charming than you and more beloved to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him. Umar added, At that time, a talk was circulating among us that, the tribe of Ghassan were preparing their horses to invade us. My Ansari companion, on the day of his turn, went to the town, and returned to us at night and knocked at my door violently and asked if I was there. I became horrified and came out to him. He said, Today a great thing has happened. I asked, What is it? Have the people of Ghassan come? He said, No, but what has happened is greater and more horrifying than that. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, has divorced his wives. Umar added, The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, kept away from his wives, and I said, Hafsa is a ruined loser. I had already thought that most probably this divorce would happen in the near future. So I dressed myself and offered the morning prayer with the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and then the Prophet entered an upper room and stayed there in seclusion. I entered upon Hafsa and saw her weeping. I asked, What makes you weep? Did I not warn you about that? Did the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, divorce you all? She said, I do not know. There he is retired alone in the upper room. I came out and sat near the pulpit and saw a group of people sitting around it and some of them were weeping. I sat with them for a while but could not endure the situation, so I went to the upper room where the Prophet was, and said to a black slave of his, Will you get the permission of the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, for Umar to enter? The slave went in, talked to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, about it and then returned saying, I have spoken to the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, and mentioned you, but he kept quiet. Then I returned and sat with the group of people sitting near the pulpit. But I could not bear the situation and once again I said to the slave, Will you get the permission for Umar? He went in and returned saying, I mentioned you to him but he kept quiet. So I returned again and sat with the group of people sitting near the pulpit, but I could not bear the situation, and so I went to the slave and said, Will you get the permission for Umar? He went in and returned to me saying, I mentioned you to him but he kept quiet. When I was leaving, behold, the slave called me, saying, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, has given you permission. Then I entered upon Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, and saw him lying on a bed made of stalks of date palm leaves, and there was no bedding between it and him. The stalks left marks on his side, and he was leaning on a leather pillow stuffed with date palm fibers. I greeted him, and while still standing, I said, O Allah's Apostle, have you divorced your wives? He looked at me and said, No. I said, Allahu Akbar. And then, while still standing, I said, chatting, will you heed what I say, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him? We, the people of Quraysh, used to have power over our women, but when we arrived at Medina we found that the men, here, were overpowered by their women. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, smiled, and then I said to him, will you heed what I say, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him? I entered upon Hafsa and said to her, do not be tempted to imitate your companion, Aisha, for she is more charming than you and more beloved to the Prophet. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, smiled for a second time. When I saw him smiling, I sat down. Then I looked around his house, and by Allah, I could not see anything of importance in his house except 3 hides, so I said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. Invoke Allah to make your followers rich, for the Persians and the Romans have been made prosperous and they have been given the pleasures of the world, although they do not worship Allah. Thereupon the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, sat up as he was reclining, and said, are you of such an opinion, O the son of Al-Khattab? These are the people who have received the rewards for their good deeds in this world. I said, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, ask Allah to forgive me. Then the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, kept away from his wives for 29 days because of the story which Hafsa had disclosed to Aisha. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, had said, I will not enter upon them, my wives, for 1 month, because of his anger towards them, when Allah had admonished him. So, when 29 days had passed, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, first entered upon Aisha. Aisha said to him, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. You had sworn that you would not enter upon us for 1 month, but now only 29 days have passed, for I have been counting them one by one. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, the present month is of 29 days. Aisha added, then Allah revealed the verses of the option. And out of all his wives he asked me first, and I chose him. Then he gave option to his other wives and they said what Aisha had said. The Prophet had decided to abstain from eating a certain kind of food because of a certain event, so Allah blamed him for doing so. Some of his wives were the cause of him taking that decision, therefore he deserted them for 1 month. Hadīth 126. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, a woman should not fast, optional fasts, except with her husband's permission if he is at home, staying with her. Hadīth 127. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if a man invites his wife to sleep with him and she refuses to come to him, then the angels send their curses on her till morning. Hadīth 128. Narrated Abu Hurairah, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, if a woman spends the night deserting her husband's bed, does not sleep with him, then the angels send their curses on her till she comes back to her husband. Hadīth 129. Narrated Abu Hurairah, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, it is not lawful for a lady to fast, nawafil, without the permission of her husband when he is at home, and she should not allow anyone to enter his house except with his permission, and if she spends of his wealth, on charitable purposes, without being ordered by him, he will get half of the reward. Hadīth 130. Narrated Usama, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, I stood at the gate of paradise and saw that the majority of the people who entered it were the poor, while the wealthy were stopped at the gate, for the accounts. But the companions of the fire were ordered to be taken to the fire. Then I stood at the gate of the fire and saw that the majority of those who entered it were women. Hadīth 131. Narrated Abdullāh bin Abbas, during the lifetime of Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, the sun eclipsed. Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, offered the prayer of the eclipse, and so did the people along with him. He performed a long qiyam, standing posture, during which Surah Al-Bukhari could have been recited. Then he performed a prolonged bowing, then raised his head and stood for a long time, which was slightly less than that of the first qiyam, and recited Qur'an. Then he performed a prolonged bowing again, but the period was shorter than the period of the first bowing. Then he stood up and then prostrated. Again he stood up, but this time the period of standing was less than the first standing. Then he performed a prolonged bowing but of a lesser duration than the first. Then he stood up again for a long time but for a lesser duration than the first. Then he performed a prolonged bowing but of lesser duration than the first, and then he again stood up, and then prostrated and then finished his prayer. By then, the sun eclipse had cleared. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, then said, "The sun and the moon are two signs among the signs of Allah, and they do not eclipse because of the death or birth of someone, so when you observe the eclipse, remember Allah, offer the eclipse prayer." They, the people, said, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. We saw you stretching your hand to take something at this place of yours, then we saw you stepping backward." He said, "I saw paradise, or paradise was shown to me, and I stretched my hand to pluck a bunch of grapes, and had I plucked it, you would have eaten of it as long as this world exists. Then I saw the hell fire, and I have never before seen such a horrible sight as that, and I saw that the majority of its dwellers were women." The people asked, "O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him. What is the reason for that?" He replied, "Because of their ungratefulness." It was said, "Do they disbelieve in Allah? Are they ungrateful to Allah?" He replied, "They are not thankful to their husbands and are ungrateful for the favors done to them. Even if you do good to one of them all your life, when she sees some harshness from you, she will say, 'I have never seen any good from you.'" Hadīth 132. Narrated Imran, the Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "I looked at paradise and saw that the majority of its residents were the poor, and I looked at the hell fire and saw that the majority of its residents were women." Hadīth 133. Narrated Abdullāh bin Amr bin al-As, Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him, said, "O Abdullāh, have I not been informed that you fast all the day and stand in prayer all night?" I said, "Yes, O Allah's Messenger, peace and blessings be upon him." He said, "Do not do that. Observe the fast sometimes and also leave them, the fast, at other times, stand up for the prayer at night and also sleep at night. Your body has a right over you, your eyes have a right over you, and your wife has a right over you."